There was a time when privacy wasn't something you had to fight for. It wasn't a setting you had to toggle on a phone. It wasn't a password. It wasn't a luxury feature. It simply existed. Like air, like the weather. You didn't move through life thinking about being seen, or recorded, or tagged, or remembered by strangers. Most moments ended when they ended. They happened in a room, between two people, and then they evaporated. They didn't follow you. They didn't resurface 10 years later in a "on this day" notification. You could say something foolish at a dinner party, and it vanished into the air. You could make a mistake, and it didn't become a permanent digital tattoo. Privacy wasn't a right we discussed. We didn't have TED Talks about it, because it was the background of life. It was the water we swam in. And we didn't understand its weight until it was gone. Before the noise, secrets were physical. They had weight. They had texture. They lived in diaries with tiny metal keys that could be picked with a hairpin. But that key meant something. It was a boundary. They lived in letters sealed in envelopes. Think about the process of sending a letter. You wrote it, you folded it, you licked the stamp, you dropped it in a metal box, and then silence. For 3 days, 5 days, a week. That silence wasn't empty. It was filled with anticipation. It was a private transaction between you and the recipient. No one else could like it. No one else could comment on it. Secrets lived in whispers, through tangled telephone cords in kitchen hallways. You remember stretching that cord as far as it would go, trying to reach the closet or the basement stairs, just to have 3 minutes of privacy from your parents. The cord was a leash, but the conversation was yours. And think about romance in high school. Think about 1992. If you liked someone, you didn't send a DM, you wrote a note. You folded it into that tiny, intricate triangle shape. You passed it in the hallway between periods. Do you like me? Check yes or no. It was physical, it was vulnerable, but it was private. If they said no, you threw the note away. It was gone. The rejection didn't get 500 likes. It didn't get screenshotted and shared with the whole school. We had the luxury of having our hearts broken in private. We had the dignity of suffering without an audience. I look at kids today, navigating romance on a public stage, and I honestly don't know how they survive it. Photographs work the same way. This is perhaps the biggest shift. You took a picture, and you didn't see it for weeks. You had to finish the roll. You had to drive to the store. You had to wait. Maybe it was blurry. Maybe your eyes were closed. Maybe it was unflattering. But when you got it back, it went into a shoebox or a sticky photo album. It didn't go to the world. It stayed on a shelf in your living room. Your memories belonged to you. They weren't content. They were just moments. And because there was no audience, we didn't perform happiness. We simply felt it. Let's talk about Mark. Mark grew up in Seattle in the late 70s. What he remembers most isn't the grunge music or the rain. It's the feeling of being unobserved. When Mark was 22, he drove down the coast to California in a beat-up sedan. For 3 days, he was unreachable. Truly unreachable. No GPS telling a satellite where he was. No text messages asking, "ETA." No social media updates. He had a Rand McNally roadmap on the passenger seat. He had a pocket full of quarters for payphones. He could stop in a diner in a small coastal town, order coffee, and sit there for 2 hours. And in that diner, he was a ghost. No one knew his name. No one knew his history. No one knew who he voted for or where he worked. For an afternoon, he could be anyone. Or he could be no one. If something went wrong back home, if he failed a class, if a girl broke up with him, it didn't travel with him. Failure stayed where it happened. It didn't follow him down Highway 101. That distance mattered. It allowed him to breathe. Privacy protected something fragile. It protected experimentation. It allowed us to be awkward, to have incomplete thoughts, to have unfinished identities. You could go through a phase and quietly leave it behind. You could change your mind about politics, about God, about love, without explaining yourself to a public tribunal. You didn't need a personal brand. You didn't need consistency. Growth needs shadows. Mushrooms grow in the dark. So do human souls. We need somewhere to hide while we figure out who we are. And when every corner of life was lit with a floodlight, that hiding place disappeared. At some point, privacy began to feel unusual. Not wrong, just noticeable. Silence started to feel like absence. If you didn't share it, did it really happen? We went to a concert, and instead of watching the band, we watched the screen recording the band. Privacy shifted from default to decision, and that shift created a quiet exhaustion, the exhaustion of always being on display. The fourth wall has broken. You are the actor, the director, and the publicist of your own life, 24 hours a day. We forgot the relief of being unnoticed. There is a legal concept called the right to be forgotten, but in the digital age, it feels like a myth. The internet never forgets. But the human mind was designed to forget. We were designed to let go of the past, to let the sharp edges soften. Remembering a time when privacy existed isn't about rejecting technology. It's about recognizing what quietly supported us. The shadows, the spaces without witnesses. You can still find them. You can leave the phone at home for a walk. You can write in a notebook instead of a blog. You can have a conversation that will never be recorded. Moments that aren't meant to be consumed. Moments that exist only once, and only for you. This is before the noise. A place to remember what it felt like to live parts of your life without witnesses. Go find a shadow today, and stay there for a while.